Let's move on to the next question. Misty asks, do you see global climate change having an impact on emerging diseases? Having a background in parasitology, I can't help but see many opportunities for pathogens to exploit warmer and wetter climates. So maybe, Andrew, you want to give that a shot?
Yeah, okay. So I think the impact of climate change on disease incident prevalence is a very difficult thing to work out. It's very tempting to think, as I guess Misty's thinking, that just because everything's going to be warmer, there'll be more of everything happening faster. But the complexities come in that, well, for one thing, there's going to be areas that are even hotter than now, where transmission is going to be stopped by heat. Another thing, there is a lot of these conditions, wetter and drier, it's going to be very variable, so it's hard to figure out what's going to be important. And then maybe not the average temperature is as key as some of the variation that's going to happen seasonally and even diurnally, what's going to happen in terms of transmission-dependent parameters and given that variability. In malaria, for example, it's a very controversial area of research at the moment, what the climate projections mean for malaria incidence. And broadly speaking, there is a view that it might actually be quite small in comparison with the changes that are going to be undertaken as a consequence of economic development, better healthcare provision, that the climate change issue is going to be less significant than economic issues that are happening anyway. That maybe there's going to be as many people at increased risk as there will be at decreased risk, so the net effect might wipe itself out. And then when you get to some of the climate models where people are downscaling to specific areas, it's not clear that the climate models are good enough to make really detailed comments on the ground, statements on the ground. So it's a hugely interesting area.
So I think there is data if you go to the Arctic, for example. There's been some very detailed work on some of the life histories of some of the parasites that occur in muskox and other animals, and they've shown that while a normal life cycle takes a year, it takes 2 years. Now it's being increased just to 1 year because that window of opportunity for transmission has been increased really quite dramatically. So we know at the extreme conditions that global climate change is really having a very big effect. But one other component we've got to think about is how climate change is going to affect the movement of people, and so they're susceptible. So how they're going to be exposed to different infections. That work in southern Africa, in the Sahel, in places where.
Yeah, and I think this goes along with Andrew's point as to whether the major driver is going to be climate change or just the general secular trends that we have in global development, increases in urbanization. Increases in population density, right? Some of which are very likely to interact with climate change, particularly with respect to the stability of food systems, which are both going to affect where people are, what kinds of are they engaging in seasonal agriculture or sedentary agriculture or large scale farming in places perhaps where they couldn't have done before because the climate is now all of a sudden either better for it or worse for it. I think those kinds of things are certain. There are going to be these strong interactions with the increase in numbers of people as well as the environmental milieu in which they find themselves.
So we can really say it's going to be change. It's going to change a lot.
It's undoubtedly going to change.
Which direction and how, it just depends.
Yeah.
I guess the other thing that goes a bit with Andrew's argument about variability is clearly a complexity is going to be if the changes are going to lead to large weather extremes, then certainly that might cause problems. When we get enormous hurricanes or something, then we know that health infrastructure start falling apart over time, and so that's obviously going to be add a twist to it. So.